Even in politics.
Actually.
Lion will finish its young.
Yeah.
Our guest this hour is Nairobi Senator Johnson SAKAJA, who is in the Situation Room. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you in the studio, Senator.
It's really amazing being here. Very beautiful studio. I've always wanted to come, but I think during COVID we were mostly doing the calls. So I'm glad to be here. I was here an hour early, just waiting at the parking.
Very good.
Come in here.
Just to come in here.
Just to come in here.
Welcome.
It's a great
There's an
pleasure.
ad if I ever heard one.
Now make sure you cut that up, Bryan. For the next promo, we have it. We have it all ready.
No, for you guys do an amazing job. I think this is the only you've created a space, the only serious show in the morning on radio where we discuss issues, very sober discussions, very considered views, thoughtful. It's not just entertainment, and I think that's a space you've carved out for yourselves very well. It's great to be here.
Do you now understand why I'm voting for this guy?
Actually, Eric has been
It's
stating
all
it. He's been
coming
telling
to
us.
me now.
Oh, yes.
He's a wise man.
He's filled our ears with it.
Clear.
We've heard and heard and heard. He says, me, I'm voting for.
Kabisa.
So, welcome to the hot seat.
Asante.
All
Asante
right.
sana. Great to be here.
We want to discuss a number of things that are happening in the country and particularly Nairobi.
Yes.
Devolution in Nairobi. Do we have a Nairobi County government?
We do.
Senator.
We have an Nairobi County government. It was not in its best state a year or some ago, and there was need to invoke Article 187 of the Constitution to transfer some of the functions. You remember there was a court ruling which said if a governor is under investigations, he cannot hold his office for that period, and our governor had no deputy. So a lot was not happening. The planning department, a lot of approvals, things that need executive signing off by a governor. So we invoked 187 to transfer 4 functions to the national government. There was a deed of transfer that was to last 24 months, meaning it's running out as well. 2 months to the election, it will revert to the county. So we still have Nairobi County government. There were attempts to kill it and to kill devolution in Nairobi. I remember during BBI, the first draft of BBI, the proposal was to make Nairobi the capital and not a county, as other counties are. And many people accepted and thought that's the best thing to do. I resisted it, and very strongly. I even went to the BBI secretariat with some of my MPs, made a presentation. And for the following reasons. Number one, devolution is one of the highlights of our constitution. We always say it's the best gift we've given Kenyans. Nairobi has 10% of Kenyans. Do they not deserve that gift? They deserve devolution. Because devolution is, fiscal decentralization and power. Step down to the people. That lady in Mutuini needs to have someone that she has chosen and who can be accountable to her to provide for her medical care. All of us, when we're talking about transport, we're talking about water, we need that level of accountability that's close to us, not at the national level. And I said, look, you don't make Nairobians pay the price for 2 people's mistakes. Just because Kidero didn't get it right and Sonko didn't get it right doesn't mean Nairobi can't get it right. We can actually make Nairobi work. And I explained, because there was the argument that look at Washington, D.C., it's the capital, it's not a federal state. Look at Canberra in Australia, look at Abuja in Nigeria. And I took them down history. There is none of these countries that converted their bustling economic capital into an administrative and political capital. They didn't do that. They moved out.
They created one.
They created. If you look at DC, that was the Residence Act of 1790, where Virginia and Maryland donated land and said, okay, for the state, to have just a neutral territory for all the states, let's create Washington, D.C. Along the Potomac River. If you look at Canberra, again, New South Wales, that was, I think, 1908. Yeah, they donated land. And they had legislation as well to create. That's why if you go to Abuja or Canberra, they even look almost artificial.
Right.
Wide streets, the buildings are a certain height. In DC, you can't build above the Washington Monument. So I said, if we want to do that in Kenya, let's not look at Kenya just as it is now. 50 years from now, let's go to Isiolo, or let's get some place at the center and develop administrative and political capital and let it grow. I like what the people of Tharaka Nithi did when we were getting into devolution. They couldn't agree on Chuka Town or the other side because it's a bit vast. So they sat with a map and a ruler, and they went to the middle, Kadwana, and they said, this is going to be the capital. And for the longest time, the biggest office in Kadwana was my TNA party office when I was chair. And now it is, there's an economy around it. So Nairobians deserve devolution. We need to make it work. And I believe we can make Nairobi work and make Nairobi work for us. Yes.
With the transfer of these 4 functions, then essentially to the NMS, right?
Yes.
Do you think that we've taken steps back?
We've made progress, but also we've taken some steps back. And I'll explain it in this way. Number one, governance and leadership is more than just about brick and mortar. It's about livelihoods and lives. There's a reason why, for those, I don't know if City reads the Bible.
I do.
You've come across it?
I do. I've come across that book.
Yeah.
In fact, I come across it every morning.
Yeah, exactly. That is nice. I love that. I love the
Yes.
Bible. If you look at the story of the Israelites, when they said they want a king, and the prophet was sent, I think it was Prophet Samuel.
That's First Samuel.
Yes, was sent. And God tells them, tell them that if they have a king, this king will tax them. This king is going to take their children. They said, no. Well, we want a king. He sent them again and said, it is not you they're rejecting. It is you. It is me they're rejecting as God. But they said, we want a king like our neighbors who you can touch and feel, who you can hold to, who you can see. So what NMS has done, it's like a machine. You'll see pavements being done. You'll see, buildings being done, hospitals, but you'll see demolitions. You won't see an empathetic face. You'll not see someone you can call to a town hall and tell them, no, even not Nataka to a Jerry or in, Dagoretti, this is what we want. So people are actually missing that. And there's certain things they've done that are too mechanical. And now I've taken them to task. I have a number of questions in the Senate. We've had so many demolitions of people's structures without telling them where to go to. A governor, a human face, someone elected, because when you elect me, then I'm accountable to you. But when I'm appointed, I don't care about, I report to the president. I'm a military officer, So you've moved it from civilian rule. Those people, if there was a governor involved, before I move you out of Westlands Market, you remember like that triangle, which is now still empty, 2 years down the line, I would think of another place and relocate you, or agree with you on how you can be compensated, and I'll think about your livelihood. On top of just a road, I'll see the faces of the children affected. I won't come to Kariobangi and move 8,000 families during COVID. No, I will not do that. So there's an empathy and compassionate aspect that is missing. Number two, the ability to oversight the NMS has gone down. The county assembly members are extremely afraid of asking questions. So you have no questions being asked in the county assembly. The only person asking questions now is myself at the Senate. That's why every week, if you look at it, there's always an issue. I asked some on mass transit. Today they're coming at 10 a.m. To the Senate to respond on Dandora Stadium. I've asked the issue of tax collection in Nairobi. It is almost like we've gone back to be at war with our people. Our businesses are being squeezed. We're squeezing water from a stone. You're paying, first of all, you pay almost 13 licenses. Number two, there are women being bungled into these Mariamos, trucks, because of 35 shillings in the markets. Yep. I think you saw what Boniface Mwangi went through, where now they're walking around with the GSU officers to collect business permits from the people. It's unheard of.
But all those things that you're saying, Senator, look, even with the transfer of functions from one unit of government to the other, there's still political representation and political accountability. It goes to the national government, yes, but the national government is still a political organ that is accountable to the people who brought it to power. So I see, maybe we're talking about other failures in oversight by various other levels, and specifically by the county assembly, because transfer of the function does not mean that county assembly is no longer responsible with its oversight.
You see, on paper, and I've told the MCS, on paper, in the Katiba it says when you transfer a function, the constitutional responsibility for that function remains with the level that transferred it. That is on paper. But today, I assure you, Asante sana. I was going to bite it, but I realized on camera. Yeah. Today, if you ask them, what level of oversight, if you ask the governor, the acting governor, who's there right now, what is the situation? And he says, oh no, please go ask him. Because of that fear.
Let me ask you this question, Mheshimiwa. What is it that these people are afraid of?
They're afraid of political repercussions. People are afraid of asking questions. Everyone wants to be politically correct. That if you question, and I always say, when you question the government, it doesn't mean you're against the government. In fact, you're probably a good friend of the government when you question. But people think, if I question them, I'm questioning the president. No, you're not. Even the president wants to know that what he's... Because he has a...
But these are elected leaders.
I think this last parliament, not just the county assemblies, this last parliament, with a lot of respect to my colleagues, has failed Kenyans by trying to just pander to the whims of the executive in many respects. In many ways. They're told jump, they say how high.
You put it politely.
Don't say they, say we.
Not we. Latif, Eric, if you...
You've said this last parliament. You're a member of that parliament. So if you're talking about the institution, then take collective responsibility and say, we as parliament have failed Kenyans.
Parliament has
when
failed
we
Kenyans.
Are told jump, we ask how high.
No, I don't. I am one of the few in government who has taken on the government more than 10 times. Remember the revenue debacle. Many issues I have spoken against excesses by the government, despite being in government and considering the president a good friend. Because I know he also doesn't look for sycophants. Now, those who may not know him assume that the more you just clap and praise
and pander to him
and pander to his whims, then you're helping him. You're not helping him. So I cannot say we. I can say parliament in its entirety. But many times I have stood with many other colleagues, on many issues for what is right. You remember, last time they withdrew the deputy president's security, and I said, no, this is unnecessary. People thought, now you've moved and you're supporting the deputy president. I said, that has nothing to do with anything. Is this the right thing to do? Even in the last parliament, before handshake, remember, when they tried to deny former Right Honorable Prime Minister his retirement benefits, I said, no, you can't tell him to retire from politics. These retirement benefits are not for him being a politician, they're for him having served as Prime Minister. And I was the only one who stood on that. Remember the security laws. I stood on that. Remember October 26th, when Honorable Lot was being beaten up. I stood to protect him. When Babu Wino was arrested. So me, I can separate issues. Supporting government is not being a sycophant. It's just objectively looking at what the issue is and standing for what is right, no matter who's in charge. So that's what I'm saying for Nairobi. The almost intimidation, and it's not overt intimidation, but this transfer has left a huge vacuum in terms of accountability. Look, you've transferred functions to the national government. National government is primarily oversighted at the National Assembly. Has there been ever a question asked to them in the National Assembly? No, not even one. Yet their budget is done there. The accounting officer is actually the status controller for NMS. I believe that they have good intentions.
You know what they say, Senator? They say that a senator is the baba or mama of the county, right? Even when you are going to present the case for Nairobi and opposing the removal of devolution in Nairobi, you rallied your fellow MPs, the members of the National Assembly, and you said, let's go together as a unit and present these issues. Have you done the same in terms of even rallying them and saying, guys, let's protect Nairobi? Ask these questions in the National Assembly. Let's look at how much budgetary allocation is going. Let's look at everything else. As the father of the county.
Let me tell you, number one, even that presentation, I had to really cajole a few of them to come. They came. But remember after that, there was a meeting in Naivasha where it was those who support BBI to go through. And we were told to go into our county caucuses. So in our caucus, I remember very well, saying, please, let us make a case again to the president and to the former prime minister of Nairobi to remain. Do you know I stood alone? They said, no, not a comma. We can't touch a comma. Ultimately, the president and the former prime minister understood, they accepted, and they removed that proposal. Anyway, BBI is now gone. It's done and dusted. But I have, as recently as last week, I had 5 of them in my office. I have 17 MPs. 5 of them came to my office. We agreed on certain things, certain legislation, including the school feeding program, which we started with Mheshimiwa KJ in Dagoretti. Mheshimiwa Theuri in Embakasi West is also starting it at Mheshimiwa Yusuf, where we're feeding kids in the schools through CDF and an organization called Food for Education, and many other things that we have agreed to work on together. But of course, at this time, many of them might think about their politics. Maybe their brand is different, and they might not want to look like rabble rousers. My brand imeribika tayari. If I don't do it, people will say I'm pretending. I should just go on doing what I do. I just remain a SAKAJA and say the truth. So yes, I've asked them that we need to. And in the beginning, General Badi was very, 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 every week he'd come and give me a report. He was told by the president to do that. He's on 24th floor. I'm on 26th. He'd send me a brief. I think that time when we had the revenue debacle, he was all achana na huyo kwanza. And later is when I told him, boss, you're not, me, I'm a politician. Today we'll be upset with each other, or we might not see eye to eye with the Prime Minister or the Deputy President, but we'll talk tomorrow and it's over. You guys don't hold grudges. Let's get back to making Nairobi work for Nairobians. That for me is my mantra, and that's what we must do. Nairobi must work.
Mheshimiwa, in your opinion, would you say that the formation and the enactment of this NMS has been useful to the county of Nairobi?
Oh, yes. NMS has done an amazing job. And I've said in many respects they've done a good job. Look, physical planning had stopped. People are not getting approvals for buildings. And for you to get an approval, you have to more or less part with money. That is done, as far as I know. That is done. We've seen improvements in many roads, especially in Eastlands. And even the model of how we do the roads. Now we're doing our own, bitumen and whatnot. The factory is now operating. Contractors are getting less of what the county should be able to do. Remember, we used to have Department of Works and all that, yeah? So that is working to a great extent. Garbage collection started well. It's not going on very well as we speak. And I have not seen a plan on the bigger issues. And that's why I raised the issue of water. The solution for water in Nairobi is not bowsers and boreholes.
What about those boreholes? In fact, I'm glad you mentioned the boreholes.
Yeah.
The boreholes have been touted as a major development in areas where they had problems with water.
You see, a lot of these areas have problems with water because of lack of a social connection policy. Yeah. So number one, the physical infrastructure has been, how do I put it? It's been interfered with. Right. So people have blocked the physical valves, and they're the ones doing the water business. So when you put up this, I remember in the first 100 days, NMS had done around 100 of these boreholes and high tanks. And we went around with the president opening some of them. And Wananchi was supposed to get them for free. Unfortunately now, a good number of them are not working because of the contamination of the water table. Number two, some have been taken over by people around there and they're charging Wananchi. So that's a question they're coming back to answer. But that is not, the solution for water in Nairobi is not boreholes.
It cannot be boreholes.
No. It is two things, and I was speaking about it in the Senate the other day. Number one, we need to make sure we have the correct quantity of water coming. And that's why that's Northern Collector Tunnel program is extremely important for Nairobi. The quantity, just the physical quantity of water, the millions of cubic meters we require. But then number two, we must use technology. A lot of the infrastructure must be overhauled. We still have the old piping, and I gave an example of Kileleshwa. A lot of those railway, former railway places, Upper Hill, etc. That infrastructure is different from what the county infrastructure is. Yes. You need to overhaul it and put in technology. And I'll give you an example. Before the last election, there was an area somewhere towards Kasarani where there's only one guy who knows where that thing is closed. Towards election, he comes and opens it. But if you have scared technology today, as governor, or God willing, inshallah, if I'm governor next year, I'll just look at my phone and I know it is Langata up and someone has closed it. You need to use that technology. Now, you cannot do that with Nairobi county budget. That's why we need to think creatively on how to finance this.
Let's take a break and look at then what needs to happen. 27 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation takes a break on KTN Home, SpiceFM and online. In the studio on the hot seat with us this morning is Nairobi Senator Johnson SAKAJA. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly. Kenya's biggest conversation, it continues. This is a Situation Room on SpiceFM, KTN Home and online. CT Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif, and our guest, Nairobi Senator Johnson SAKAJA. We are talking about safeguarding devolution for Nairobi. And looking at City, you had asked whether the senator thinks that NMS has been of any benefit to the county. And you said an emphatic yes.
Oh, yes. It's been of benefit.
Better than if we had remained without NMS.
Better than
a county administration would have done.
Better than the administration which has transferred functions to it, and had explained the challenges they were going through at that point, and I've given examples. They came and filled a gap. There was a gap in terms of planning, in terms of the psyche of the staff in the county. Things that are necessary to be done are not being done. But I think more must be done now. They need to be more human, in their approach. Of course, there are certain things you must do. If you try and convince Nairobians that I'm going to do this, you will not get them together. But there's a way you carry people along. Last week I had almost 10 chairs of the former council estates, Jericho, Woodley, all these guys. And they said, look, we're not opposed to this urban renewal, but we must be carried along. We've lived here 2-3 generations in Jeri, in Bahati, in Uhuru, And you can't just tell us that we're just going to be kicked out tomorrow.
Right.
They're not engaging us. They're not doing proper public participation. So the human aspect, the social aspect of it is what I think needs to be. And even
I
participation.
think, Senator, that's where my problem with NMS would be.
Yeah.
Because the Constitution places public participation strongly and squarely on everything that the government does.
There's a huge premium on public
Now,
participation.
if there's anything that the government is doing and it's not involving the public, it's not getting the public along, it's not even allowing for proper oversight
Yes.
by the people who've been elected by the Nairobi residents to oversight this unit. With all those things, that's why I raise my questions. Yes, I have seen things that are being done by the NMS, but I sit back and I always ask myself my question: are we sure of the things that are being done by the NMS, or are we just seeing things?
We're just seeing
When you
things.
talk about 17 new health facilities have been constructed, do we know about the procurement process that's gone
Exactly.
through?
And those are the questions I asked. In fact, last week the other week at the Senate, and they're coming back. I asked, first of all, these facilities, do they have drugs? Do they have staff? And I gave examples. Even Bagathi has only one critical care specialist. They didn't have nitrous, I think nitrous oxide in their theater. I said, look, you can do brick and mortar, but how are you dealing with the doctors, the nurses, the people? Because Nairobi is not just a machine. Otherwise it would just be, even there'd be software that could run our counties. But there's a human aspect where you participate with the people and you now interrogate. And that's interrogation we're doing. Don't think just because it's a special entity that they will escape oversight in terms of finances. No. Because they say mgema kisifiwa tembo ulitia maji. You can praise these guys so much, it goes to the head. And then you see corruptions and cartels forming. And the people who telling me, look, there's a small cartel that is now forming around certain individuals who, I don't want to talk about because I don't have the documentation. But I'm getting a lot of information now coming to me. And we'll question it, not for our sake, but for the sake of the people of Nairobi.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nairobi has always, I think of times even when you're on the outside looking in and you hear about Nairobi as a city, and then now, as a county, the responsibility on the shoulders of Nairobi, not just for the country, but for the region, and then also for the globe, are actually quite heavy.
It's heavy.
So the rationale behind people saying that it should actually be a demarcated area for political and government administration has its merit in that sense, right? I hear what you're saying then also about having a people-sided face to this as well. Urban renewal is extremely important. Raising economic profile of this particular city, even more important. How then do you think that you can find the nexus and create that balance between the two?
You need to have a mix of it. And the Constitution talks about the special relationship that Nairobi as a capital must have with the national government. It must have a special relationship. There are certain things that Nairobi as a county cannot do on its own. Yeah, this water issue we're talking about, you'll not do it on your own. You need to partner. You need to even probably do an infrastructure bond, which in Chapter 12 of the Constitution can only be guaranteed by the national government. You need the ministry at that place to partner with the county to sort out these issues. When you talk about mass transit, which I think is one of the most critical issues we need to sort out. In fact, when I'm governor, if I'm to do only one thing, that's all I'll do. The proper mass transit system, as had been planned.
We have heard
if you look at our JICA plan.
We have heard this from the others.
But no one has that commitment to do it.
One told us it's going to bring cable cars.
Who's that?
Kidero.
But where was the plan?
See, he had it.
No. You see, the plan is there.
Same thing with you. You have a plan.
The plan is there. The plan cost us 400 million shillings. Nairobi City Council paid 100. The Japanese paid 300. The plan involves heavy rail, first of all. On the biggest trunk, that is Thika Road going all the way up towards Ngong Road. And we have this space in the middle. If you look at the Dubai Metro, the way it's elevated, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
And then on Mombasa Road, which is what should have been what we're calling the expressway now. And that's why initially I was not so much for the expressway, because the more roads you do, the more people buy cars. Remember Thika Road? Everyone said, this is, it's amazing. But everyone moved there. You look at Thika Road on your traffic update now. It's crazy. There's a book called The Power Broker by Robert Caro, the guy who did the biography of Lyndon Baines Johnson. It's about a man called Robert Moses and the fall of New York and how he just did roads and roads and roads and roads. In fact, he did some of the bridges so low that you can't have mass transit. And also till today, despite the subway, America has those problems. So the mass transit issue must be, you don't have to, we have kids waking up at 4 a.m. to go to school, children in primary school going across town. That is the one thing that I believe really must be sorted. It affects everything else. But that cannot be done by a governor alone. So that special relationship is extremely...
But something as straightforward as this, why does it meet with so much resistance?
Because people are afraid there's no vision. Number one, you feel, okay, if I touch this, I will lose people in public transport. Yeah, the matatu people.
Yep.
And I feel that's a very myopic view because there's always space for everyone. Yeah, because that train is not going to drop you to your house, is it? There'll be nodes around. But number two, even if you were to think about it politically, they're important. And in fact, I mean, there are issues they have that I'm fighting for today about the return of the seasonal ticket to 5,000, which it had gone down to 3,000. And I'm fighting for them. But look, even if you say 20,000 matatus have 10 voters around it who will all vote against you if you move this, that's 200,000. Why are you jeopardizing, and I have 3 million voters, why are you jeopardizing the lives of 4.3 million Nairobians because of 200,000? There is space for everybody. These are global capital, as you've said. Which global capital in the 21st century does not have mass transit? Which global capital in the 21st century in this world do you have public transport where the only public thing is the people, is the passengers? There's nothing public. It trains, bus fare goes to 300 shillings. It's not predictable. I have friends in New York, I have friends in DC doing well, but they don't own cars. True. If you knew that at 7 there's a train that will drop me by 7:20 and there's a 7:21 and every day it is there, clean, reliable, efficient, why would you have to own a car? That is the Nairobi one. It can be done. Funny enough, the guy who did the Dubai Metro, and now when I was in Saudi Arabia, I met him. Now in Riyadh, he's called George Odongo, Kenyan. The guys who designed it, Kenyans. Why don't we have it here?
The one who designed the London Metro?
London Metro. Yeah. The guys in charge of. So once you sort mass transit, you sort out housing. Not everybody has to live near industrial area or near where they work. People can move to the outskirts. You can go to, to Kitengela, you can go all around. You create development, and you create new channels of the economy. Then these other issues can be sorted out.
But you know where the fundamental issue here is, Mheshimiwa, you and your ilk. The promises you make over time and the promises you don't keep over time then creates a completely different culture in the people who should be expecting and receiving these services.
No, that is true.
For instance, you're talking about urban renewal, a history of issues between the city council and the tenants.
Yeah.
The county government comes in, all they do is inherit those problems.
Yeah.
So even when you tell people that this is what's going to happen, they do not believe you.
They don't believe because people, once bitten, now it's not even once bitten, so many times bitten.
Yes.
People are shy.
So even now this discussion, we've had this discussion with the Ministry of Transport.
Yes.
We've spoken to the PS about it. And we even asked the question, okay, these public sector people or private sector people who are in transport, is there no way of getting them to invest in this thing so that they are part and parcel of this thing?
Exactly. They can have shares in the company that does it. They can own locomotives. You can retrain some of those people.
So that they don't lose out.
And that's what I believe in.
Yes.
But you see what you need to ask them and that's why I'm moving away from the legislature. I've legislated too much and spoken too much. I've been an MP, I've done bills. I think last time I was rated the best performing senator because of the number of motions and even speaking time on the floor. But now I want to execute. Because you speak.
Is there a cup they give you or a medal?
Not even M-Pesa.
Not an extra.
It would appear as though there's so much work to do, and maybe that's what maybe we've been blinded by, that there's a lot of work to do, not possible for one person to handle it. That's why we've not made as much progress as could be. Is it too much? I mean, you're talking about partnerships, which are extremely important, but maybe we've been told about the failures and why we've not been able to get where we should. It's because there's too much. There are too many, geysers opening up here and there. You put one out, another one pops up, put one out, another one pops up. Or is it a total mismanagement?
It's like herding cats. You sort this side, this other side goes on. I think what we need to do, number one, and not just being, naively, I keep saying I choose to remain unapologetically optimistic without being recklessly naive. We must look at Nairobi in terms of what it must be. Yeah, and do a plan. Look, in the next 50 years, this is how the city must be operating. This is how the population is going to grow. This is how we're going to go. Now, we must own it. There's no magician who's going to come with a magic wand as a governor who will sort it. There's no one who is a water engineer and also a specialist in transport and does public finance, all those functions of a county government. But and you remember in 2016, you say, I am Nairobi. Because I want people to own. Let's first own our city. If you ask somebody today in Karen, where do you live? He say, I live. You ask him, where are you from? He say, I live in Karen. Or I live in Lavington, or I live in South Sea. But there are places in Nairobi, you say, someone will say, I am from. Jerry, people don't see themselves as citizens and owners of their city. Once you do that, then we partner. There are many things private sector want to do, corporate. I had friends who have, along Wood Avenue, and they said, look, where we stay, we want to come and help do the pavements and even the lighting. But the county will not allow us to do it. Why? Yet it is our city. That attitude is the first thing that must change.
It's the county's job.
Because you see, there's two things. Number one, if you do it, there's no kickback for the guy who's in there. There's no contract, there's no contractor. And then number two, also, then maybe from the honest side, there could be, some standards issues.
Yeah.
Maybe
set the standard.
And who will be, so you can set the standard. You can come together with corporate and say, look, Standard Media Group, here is where you are. Behind you, you have Mukuru. Can you guys adapt this estate? Yeah. Let's work on 2-3 schools. Brand all you want, because you want to do your branding. Safaricom, help me with Buruburu. Let's plant trees in Buruburu. Let's engage those young people to collect the garbage. Go to Safaricom. They are willing to do it. But when people come into office and think, okay, I'm now a one-man show, I'm the Superman, Otero, I'm going to sort out the city, you will never pass. And then you try and do too many things. A proper governor of this city must just focus on at least 3. Then let the next administration come in. So I think those promises, the reason why they're not achieved is, one, we overpromise too many things. I've just spoken about 2. We overpromise and underdeliver. And then you guys have the pressure. Okay, what are you going to do in the first 100 days? If I'm ever asked that question, I said, the first 100 days, I'm not being elected for 100 days. This is what I want us to do in 10 years. And the halfway mark is this. So by the 50th, if I've not done it, then don't give me the 10. Because then you're realistic and you're being, realistic. Look, this is the plan. This is where we're going. Look at our revenues for the next 10 years. What are they going to be in Nairobi? Can you discount it? There's so many financial instruments. Because the amount of money you need, you're talking about 100 billion, 200 billion shillings.
Right.
Yet our budget is like 30.
But Mheshimiwa, against this backdrop of goodwill, good intentions, and here I'm not a naysayer saying that the way to hell is paved with good intentions. I'm simply saying that how then do you swim against the tide of this culture that we've acquired as Kenyans, where we've made theft, we've baptized it, we've normalized it, and every other Kenyan and their cousin is a thief in the making or an actual thief.
Has been.
Yes, it just what they may lack is the opportunity to steal. Yes. Now, they call it hustling, they call it deal making, but it's theft.
Let me tell you, number one, for many people, unfortunately, they are not corrupt because they've not had the chance to be. It's a lack of opportunity. It's not because of their value system. For many people, it's just a lack of opportunity to be in a position where you can engage in it. I promise you. And that's why, there are surveys which have been done where young people say they'll do whatever it takes to make money, because we've glorified the thieves. We've glorified them. We want to take selfies with them. And so it's get rich quick. But what you do when you're running a city like Nairobi, for instance, number one, reduce as much as possible human interaction with cash and approval processes. Automate. The person who's going to be working with me everywhere is my chief innovation officer. I remember sitting with the mayor of San Francisco, and his right-hand man is his CIO, chief innovation officer. They use technology for anything that needs to be done. Once you reduce that interaction, so if you jump a light, there's no cop who should flag you down to find you. You're in the system. The camera has seen you. Umekatwa pesa. You have to pay. It's automatic. There's no negotiating. So as little human interaction. But number two, what you do in Nairobi, you must step down Devolution to the next level. You will not run Nairobi as an entity on its own. So where I have 10 CECs, you do 4 boroughs, north, east, west, and south. The person dealing with garbage collection in Karen cannot be the same person dealing with it in Kayole. The person dealing with Mukuru cannot be the same person dealing with the roads in Westlands. So once you have that lower level of accountability, and I know, look, this South Sea area, this is the budget you asked for. This is what we agreed needs to be done. This place will be clean, yeah? Okay. The roads will be like this. And I've stepped it down. I know who's in charge of that area. They won't tell me, oh, no, sorry, kuna mambo ingine Roysambu I'm dealing with. I'll just drive around. If there's takataka there and you've not dealt with, go home. Simple. Now, once you make a few examples of people, a few examples of people, then they know, okay, now we're in serious business.
We're serious.
So that's the only way. We won't change people's values by just saying theft is bad. It's about systems. It's about technology. And it's about giving examples so that iwe funzo kwa wale wenye tabia kama hiyo.
SAKAJA, I'm going to come and read the question that or the comment that's been raised by Steve. But I just want to start this by, when you rose to national limelight, before that, you had actually been a grassroots mobilizer.
Yes.
You had played in the political space for a while.
Yeah.
And then TNA comes and Uhuru joins TNA and you launch this, vibrant campaign. And the way you're talking is how the TNA team were talking in 2013.
Yes.
We are going digital. We forget about analog stuff. And this is how you're going to deliver. Speaking very well. You got into parliament as a member of a National Assembly.
Yeah.
And now you're a senator.
Yes.
And you've seen the reality of things on the ground.
Yeah.
Now, what is it that you would say that would make you actually deliver these things that you're saying and not just making this empty political rhetoric? Now, let me come to what Steve is saying. We have heard all these stories for too long. Our political class will deliver nothing. Just let SAKAJA Johnson market himself, but rest assured, nothing shall be delivered for Nairobians. This is what people are thinking.
I
we
understand.
hear you talking very well. We've heard even at the national level. This is what we are going to do in 6 months' time. This shall be delivered. We shall have this. We shall be a digital economy. Our income level shall rise to this much. We shall be raising X amount of trillions per year in revenues. No, nothing. And now you're telling us very sweet things. How can we trust that you can even deliver them? Bear in mind, Nairobi, cartels. Nairobi, it has owners. Nairobi has corruption deeply entrenched and very many interests, like you said. People in the transport sector have interest. People in construction sector have interest. People in real estate have interest. Bear in mind all those things.
Number one, cartels is a word used by lazy leaders to hide the issues. And the only way to deal with cartels, number one, is not to be part of them. And there are ways of entrapment where they entice you and you join them. So you not deal with the cartels if you talk about it like that. But let me say this. I understand the skepticism and the cynicism that comes because of failure. You failed so many times. People have let us down many times. And we have a choice to make. You can choose to give up and say, okay, nothing will ever change. Things will remain the same. Or you can choose to actually identify leadership we can trust and believe in. So how will I do? Everything I said I would do from the time I became a nominated MP, I have done. So I have a track record. I spoke about legislation, and that's why I'm saying I'm tired of legislating. On 30% procurement opportunities, I've done it. Government is not implementing it. But I've done my part as a legislator. The National Employment Authority, I legislated. It's there. Are they doing as well as they should?
Are they doing anything?
They are not.
Okay.
When you talk about, even in the Senate, as we speak today, we're working with the young people on the startup bill. I promised it. It is happening. It is going on. I've done my oversight work. So I cannot also be a victim of the failures of others. Because the role I have been given, of course, it is collective responsibility, but I have a role. If I come here, I cannot fire you, Latif, because the tea was not done well. That's not your work. But you are doing your work there. So look at what each legislator said they would do and track it.
Hold them accountable for that.
For their roles, And when I talk about digital, I don't talk about digital in terms of sloganeering. I've given specific examples. SCADA technology. I've spoken about the lights. Those are things that we need to do. Let's create systems that will make them work. So we have a choice to make. We can choose to give up and say, it'll always be corrupt. Let's look for the guy who we think, if he's corrupt, he'll share with us. That Nairobi will never change. But again, I say, I choose to look at Nairobi and even our country. Not in terms of how it has always been, because that is the easier way to look at things, but in terms of how it must be. Now, what does it take for us to get it there?
Are you saying, Senator, that among the reasons why the past two governors of Nairobi have not been able to deliver on their promise is A, because of incompetence, because of laziness, because of not understanding, and that you have that?
Yes, first of all, I believe I'll do a better job than them, definitely. But you see,
what made them fail?
Shakespeare said, truly wise is he who learns from another's mishap. I think that's in the Hamlet. You see, the position, and I'm glad by that I didn't even become governor last time, because I don't think I'd be as good as I will be, because I've learned from their mistakes. I've seen how this place operates. I've understood how the county operates. I've understood it. One, if you try to be a one-man show, you'll not make it. You will not make it. Two, you need to have a team. You cannot get elected and then start saying, okay, who will be in charge of water? Who will be, and you have a cabinet of strangers who you've been given in terms of political, posturing, fixing. We're in the campaign together and you must have a team. The people who I will unveil when I'm unveiling my manifesto. The person who's written the one on water will come and implement it. The person who's been in my team understands the vision, who's been dealing with transport, is the one who will come and implement it. So you cannot, and I've seen that's a mistake that they've made. And number three, and I will not mention which of the two did this. You must not. So and allow me to share this story. One of them, and I was told by somebody who was working with them very closely, and they've confirmed it, that, when they got in, people are like, oh, new kid in the block, let things run properly. Let us not, now, we don't know what's happening. The people who've been in the county for years. So they're like, okay, let us see how things are operating. One contract was done. And now the guy at the top says, okay, since kuna watu wamefanya kazi, wapatiwe kitu. From that day, the guy could not run the county. And it's happened in many counties. Once you step down from the position of leadership and they're like, kumbe uni mwizi kama sisi, and you're displaying it to them, you will not run this county. Number two, you cannot run Nairobi if you're trying to be popular. You must enter with a one-term mentality. That, look, there are things that need to be done. I'll have enemies. People will not be happy, but let them be done. And as a leader, if you enter with, that, let me make people happy to get my second term, you will not achieve anything.
Well, that's what NMS is doing.
Yeah.
They are not trying to please anybody.
They're not. Yes. Because they're not going to be elected.
They don't need your vote.
Exactly. So once you come in with that mentality and you honestly have a burden for the city, many of us have grown up here, Eric, and we remember how it used to work. When the garbage used to be collected, the water bill is on, which was the bill for the garbage. The cameras, they used to come. Streets used to be washed with, water and soap. Things used to operate. As a kid, from the time I was 7 years old, I'd walk to town. It was safe.
And those Kenya bus.
In fact, the first job I wanted was to be a bus driver. Because I remember with my mom, the day we stopped, remember the doors used to close. So when we stopped at the bus, at this bus stop, the door opened itself, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that is magic!" I had to be a bus driver. I was given a talk by my folks. But Nairobi used to work. The congestion wasn't there because town was not a termination point. Number 8 was number 42. The Dandora bus would go to the other side. We can make Nairobi work. It has worked before. I believe it can work. So people can choose. It's very easy because of past leaders to say, okay, no one will ever come and things will never be good. But then now, what does that leave us as?
The problem
you choose to
here,
believe.
Mheshimiwa, I think very many people who go into politics, enter politics with good intentions, like you, and they purpose to actually do good. Then they get in. And then the pressures come in. Because there's pressures from your political party. There's pressures from your political buddies. There's pressure from the business community. There are all these pressures. Now, the reality of politics dawn on you. Then there are those who sponsored you to get that. And they have their demands.
You see, I'm not getting in now for the first time. And so I have, as I've said, track record. One, I've had pressure from political party.
You've never been in charge of the sort of resources you're going to be in charge of if you become governor.
I was in charge of resources in the party, but not that kind of resources.
No. Even senator, you can even say MP.
Yeah.
That's small change. That's pocket change compared to what governors have to deal with.
But you know what resources do? They don't change someone. They show you their true character. They don't change. I don't think you enter politics and change. When you get privilege, when you get authority, when you get power, it shows who you truly are. Who you really were. From the beginning.
So we ought to believe.
That's what I'm saying. It says, take care of the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. So that's why I can give the examples of where I've been. Why didn't I change? Right now I'll be here with like 30 bodyguards. And
I am waiting to have this conversation.
Yeah, when I'm governor.
Because you will change.
I will not.
Oh, yes, you will.
I will progress. There's also progress. If I remain how I was 10 years ago.
It's called progress.
I don't think so.
That's a good word to put.
I don't think so. And you see, for me, honestly, what I thank God for was that at a very young age, I got to interact with top leadership. So from the time I was 22, I was with President Moi Kibaki. And I demystified this thing called leadership. That I could sit and the President of the Republic is taking notes.
Right.
I sat with the ministers and I was like, we think these guys know everything. They're as clueless as us. I've sat with the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, who we did TNA. I worked in Treasury. I've seen how government works with him. And so for me, there's no culture shock. You get a new guy who's coming out to start.
Yeah.
Naitwa Mheshimiwa sasa. Naitwa. No, I don't have time for that. And also because I have a political future that I'm looking at. So why would I mess it up at 37?
Still have a lot to do.
I am waiting to have this conversation with the Mheshimiwa.
Thank you. That sounds like he knows.
That
sounds like he knows I'm gonna be in that position. Inshallah, from your lips to God's ears.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Senator.
Thanks.
Come again. Let's have a longer conversation again.
Asante.
It's been a lively one. Senator Johnson SAKAJA has been with us since the top of the hour, and we've also been live on KTN Home since the top of the hour. The conversations continue up to 10 a.m. This is the Situation Room on SpiceFM. We've been live on KTN, but we're also live on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke.
Parting shot.
Parting shot.
Let's make Nairobi work.
Let's make Nairobi work.
Yes.
Okay.